How's it going, Lucy fans? Welcome to a brand new Lucifer video. So today's video is of course on season 6, a little bit of 5B ending stuff with what the showrunners have teased about that. But yeah, I felt like making a Lucifer video because I kind of realized I said I was going to make some post-Lucifer season 5B content, and I totally dropped the ball and forgot about that. But luckily, the showrunners have teased us with quite a few things, some very interesting things here that I haven't actually covered yet, which I wanted to give my 2 cents on. Maybe you've heard some of this before, but maybe quite a lot of you haven't, so I can't wait to get into this and discuss it with you guys down in the comments below, because since we've got a whole new season of Lucifer now, with Lucifer literally kind of having self-actualized, being God, so to speak, well, yeah, you can imagine the theories and speculations that can go into next season. But not only that, we get teased for new characters, the return of Detective Douche, of course, and more. So go ahead and like this video if you do go on to enjoy it, and subscribe if you're a Lucy fan. A lot of you aren't subscribed to this channel who watch this channel, so double check that you're subscribed, or click that little red button. Just make sure it says subscribed if you aren't already. So the article I'm pulling from is from TV Line. I will link it in the top pinned comment in case you want to read the other details, because I'm not going to pull every single thing, just mostly the juicy parts I want to touch on today. So they first asked the showrunners, first of all, given Netflix's last minute uncancellation, where at the end of 5B, if we look hard enough, might we spot the skid marks, the needle scratch, a change in direction? Now, Ildi Modrovich responded that surprisingly, where we left off was actually the easiest endpoint, in the middle of such a curveball. When they said, let's have another season, that was an easy one, because at the end of Act 5 of that episode was Lucifer becoming God, and we realized that that was such a great cliffhanger. In the original series finale, a lot happened in Act 6, obviously, but we just kind of looped it off, and Lucifer becoming God became the end of 5B. Now, first of all, straight away with my thoughts on that, and this is what I mean, I haven't actually seen this, so I'm really happy to be seeing the showrunners talk about this. I personally thought that that finale episode, while it was a great way, because just to preface this a little bit, going into season 5B, I was worried, just like a lot of fans naturally, that it would be kind of longed out a little bit. I didn't want to quite call it milking it, but I thought, well, if this show was meant to end this season, quite literally, and now they've been renewed for another one, why are they not going to, like, spread it too thin? But the cliffhanger with Lucifer becoming God, as they're saying here, was always kind of the idea, but obviously a lot more happened, but then they decided to kind of loop it off there. I felt like that finale in of itself should have been 2 episodes, because I felt like it was a little bit rushed in certain areas, but to imagine that this would have obviously already happened, but they said that there was a lot more in the original series finale of what happened in Act 6, but obviously they just kind of looped it off with Lucifer becoming God at the end of 5B. It makes me think, wow, what more could they really have put in to end the series as a whole in the final episode of season 5B? I don't know. I don't know if you guys have just considered that for a second. I'm not putting it down. I'm just thinking, wow, like Lucifer would have become God. Michael would have kind of been simmered down for some time, I guess. But like we wouldn't really have had much of a chance to explore the responsibility of Lucifer being God, how that would have been, because the show would have ended. So that's why I'm very grateful for a season 6, to be honest, because now we get to navigate those pathways, whereas the show would have, as they're kind of saying here, there was a bit more in the next act, which they didn't get to do, because that's now become a new season. But other than that, it was kind of meant to end with Lucifer becoming God. A little bit more kind of happened, but that would have really been squeezed in my opinion. Now, they do go on to say, when TV Line asks, so was there no entirely new moment that you had to add to help facilitate a season 6? Joe Henderson actually said no. The only changes we made were COVID related, because we hadn't shot the big battle, we shot everything other than the big battle, and then the scene where Lucifer impersonates Michael before COVID. As far as anything else, we just looked at the episode and were like, hey, that's a pretty good note to end on. It wraps up so much of the story to be told this season, which is always so important to us, but makes you go, I'm coming back for that. Of which, you know, kind of just going off what I was talking about off the first question, I wholeheartedly agree. I wish they would have detailed exactly how that was going to end in 5B, but at the same time, that's kind of a stupid wish, because that would reveal some of the bullet points they have planned for Season 6, because there are a couple of things, obviously, that they didn't give us in the Season 5B finale that are now reserved for Season 6, because, well, it would give away exactly how it's going to end, which is still yet to be seen. with Lucifer and Chloe. Still going along the season 6 discussion with how it's got to kind of pan out before we get to the more speculative stuff with Detective Douche and a new character. Now, one of the cast members I spoke to said that season 6 is, in a way, an elongated version of a series ending coda that you had planned. Now, Joe Henderson says, I would say that's true to a point. It is very much our goodbye season. But as we started to dig into season 6, we found new story we wouldn't have told before. I don't want people to think that season 6 is almost like an elongated act 6, because it's not. It's its own season. It's got its own engine. There is a story that we didn't know we would have to tell until we got to the point we got to. And once we got there and looked around, we realized that there was an entire engine for an entire season's worth of storytelling that we're excited about. But it is very much a season of saying goodbye to the show we love. And Idli Modrovic says, in fact, the main story of season 6 was not a part of season 5 at all. Now, you could say, yeah, sure, showrunners and stuff are going to say this to sell another season, but like, honestly, that gives me a lot of faith. I do trust the showrunners of this show, but not only that, it's fascinating to me that not only is it, as what they've heard from certain cast members, that is now getting back to TV lines, so now they're asking the showrunners, oh, we've heard that it's kind of an elongated thing. They're saying partly that's true, but at the same time, they're including story that wasn't even going to be in the original Series 5 series finale, which really makes me fascinated as to what that's going to be, considering a show was going to end last season, or like in the most recent season, and now we've got new material that wasn't even going to be included in that final episode of whatever would have originally happened. As I said, piques my interest. Is it what, I mean, I don't think it's going to just be Lucifer handling how to be God, because that's the obvious one. There's new material here that obviously I couldn't speculate too much about. I completely welcome you guys to give me your thoughts down in the comments below. Of which TV Line asks next, is there a character that is introduced in season 6 that you otherwise were going to have to leave on the table? Someone you perhaps had mulled in the past seasons? Joe says, oh, that's a good one. There is a new character in season 6 that was not going to be a part of season 5. A whole new character. So, okay, so not a character that was just kind of teased in the previous season, is now being brought back in. He is now saying there is a whole brand new character in season 6 that wasn't yet again with the new kind of main plot of what they were saying that wasn't going to be in season 5. They're now saying that this new character that wasn't going to be a part of the original season 5 ending and whatnot is now being included in season 6. Now, as for speculations with that, I could offer some things, obviously. Now, I know some people are talking about Jesus. That would be interesting, or like Adam, for like obviously Adam and Eve. Now, this is where you can obviously speculate endlessly with Jesus though, and what's always been my thoughts behind that is I feel like if you bring in a character as big as potentially, like what we've had before, when Eve was brought in, that was Lucifer season 4, and the whole season didn't revolve around her, but like she was very much so new character. Oh, she was in it very, very much so. So if you're going to bring in another character of a biblical character, that is, I feel like you would need to dedicate a lot of this season to that character, and I don't know if they're going to do that in their final season when they've got so many goodbyes to do. They've got the Ark of God, Lucifer handling that, and many other things to do. I'm not saying that they can't still introduce Jesus and he can have like a similar Eve role throughout the season, and maybe how it's relevant because Lucy is now God. I assume now that Lucy is God, he can go to heaven, and we get to see a lot more of the Silver City, so that just opens up a massive cast of characters that can now be involved. It really is limitless, but I would love to know who you would like to see for this new character that wasn't going to be a part of season 5 originally, but now that they've got a whole new season, they can fit him in, or her in. This is when TV Line goes on to, of course, ask about Kevin Alejandro's Detective Douche. And they're saying, so I'm talking to Kevin Alejandro, and he says that you all went and killed him off in the next to last episode, but then you got your season 6 and you found some way to kind of, sort of, bring him back for a little encore. They go on to say that, speaking of curveballs that we throw ourselves, we knew we could not do another season without Detective Douche. So yeah, we found a story for him that we just love. And it's one of those examples of sometimes you paint yourself into a corner and you find something that's so much more fun and satisfying because of it. In trying to find your way out of it, you find something that you never would have done or never would have thought of before. But otherwise, he was going to be your big series ending death that kind of galvanized everybody for the finale. story. This is when Joe Henderson goes on to say, as you asked the question, I'd forgotten. Kevin at the top of season 5, thinking it was going to end, actually asked to die. He was literally saying to us, I want Dan to die. I want to do a death scene. And at first we were like, no, we have a different plan for Dan. But as we started getting into the story, we realized actually that does dovetail with what we want to get. It's funny because not only was Kevin like, oh God, I'm dead now, but it was a demise of his own making because he inspired us to go there. But like Ildi said, in season 6, he inspired us to do, quite possibly, one of our favorite storylines. So yes, as you all kind of probably guessed, and maybe you've seen Kevin Alejandro talk about this, like not only just through TV Line, I've seen other interviews where he's kind of being cornered by the interviewer and he can't really say too much. But yeah, Dan is going to be back. I said this right as of when I was watching the episode and doing my review. It's very obvious that Dan being in hell and left in hell, especially with Lucifer now being God, it wasn't going to stay there. It just wasn't. So I knew we were going to see him in some form. I just didn't know how much. I think it could be a good little subplot. You know, whether we have the case stuff, the case stuff of the week, we have Lucifer figuring out how to be God with the goddess being Chloe, I guess, and all that. But then you're going to have other scenes, I feel, of Dan maybe working through his guilt. Maybe it's a bit more complicated than the guilt. Maybe he isn't even in hell. Maybe he's in purgatory. Maybe he's a ghost. Maybe who knows? But ultimately you can kind of see, and maybe it is a bit too predictable, I don't know, but he's going to kind of float up to heaven, and maybe we'll see Lucifer in the Silver City with him. Maybe he reunites with Charlotte and he feels content. But yet again, I would love to know if you have any more specific speculations or theories on as to what is exactly going to go down with Dan's arc next season and how you think it's going to be coming about. Is it really going to just be a simple hell loop? Or is it going to be maybe something a bit more fishy going on with him? Going further along the Dan route, they say, speaking of Dan, you did some really interesting things this season with the whole question of who ends up in hell. I mean, you even had us worrying that Chloe might end up there. Joe goes on to say that we wanted to explore a couple of things for Lucifer, and one was the idea of the parallel between him and Dan. The idea that our own guilt tortures us, but also the idea that maybe the system isn't what it should be, especially as we explore the idea of Lucifer becoming his own father and having to face that. Is this the way that the system is supposed to work? Because if Dan Espinosa doesn't go to heaven after all he's gone through and all the wonderful stuff in his heart, then maybe there's something even bigger broken. Now, they do go on to tease how Dan was a bit of a sketchy cop in season 1 and how hell isn't entirely out of the question from the interviewer, but then the showrunners do say, yes, he was our corrupt cop, but the funny thing about hell is that we put ourselves there. So whether or not he did something that warranted putting himself there, he felt he deserved to be there. So it is probably more likely that Dan will actually be in hell itself. All I hope with this is that it's just beyond the simple hell loop episode. Maybe we're just going to keep revisiting Dan in his hell loop throughout multiple episodes, but even then, I feel like a spanner needs to be thrown in the works, so it's not a repeat of what we've seen before. Now, as for looking ahead next season, they ask, are we supposed to fully understand yet what transpired in those last few sequences, where Lucifer crash-landed in heaven, handed his ring off to Chloe so that she could return to Earth for the living, but then he somehow also got back? Is it simply a matter of after Chloe left heaven, Lucifer was certified as God? Well, Joe goes on to say that we do get into that in season 6, but we can tell you that his coming back is not about getting the power of God. It's more about self-actualization, which is the theme of our show. Lucifer was banished from heaven, so if he ever went up there, he would be lit on fire. But as so much of our show tells you, angels self-actualize. We often are our own worst enemy, so was Lucifer on fire because God banished him, or because Lucifer didn't feel worthy? So finally telling Chloe he loved her, finally feeling worthy. Now, LD goes on to say that making the ultimate sacrifice of putting somebody before himself so completely and entirely was something Lucifer had never done in his life before. And then that's when they ask, lastly, what's the general gist of season 6? Is it going to be about Lucifer being God? Any trade-offs involved? Will Chloe still be his consultant? Now, Ildi goes on to say, I mean, we can say this, what happens when a dog catches the car? Like, what happens when Lucifer gets a hold of something that maybe he thought he wanted? He's always his own worst enemy, so it's not going to be an easy road. Let's put it that way. So, as for like those last two questions just wrapped up in one with my thoughts on that, I completely agree with what they're saying, and it's interesting because, you know, what they're saying here is, but we can tell you that his coming back is not about getting the power of God. It's more about self-actualization. So that's really cool, because it's like, as I was kind of talking about, I was getting into a bit of nitpicky details in my breakdown of it. I was like, so God is still God in that other universe, but like he literally had powers, like powers. So I don't think he has, as the showrunners say themselves here, like literally been imbued with the power of God in the essence or power transfer kind of way. He's technically got the power of God through ranking up, through self-actualization. And I'm guessing why any angel just can't self-actualize is because you really have to almost subconsciously, deep down, know that to be the case for you, to be God kind of thing. So that's why that's kind of unique to Lucifer, and why Michael just can't self-actualize being God, or any other angel for that matter. But even then, like, I do still have questions, and they did say they're going to get into that a little bit in season 6. So just because you self-actualize being God, does that mean you can create a universe? Does that mean you can create this? Can you self-actualize every last power of God and just conjure anything like Dennis Haysbert's God can, kind of thing? I have all those questions that I want to know about. I like a little bit more of the techie-wecky kind of celestial details. I mean, it was kind of obvious with what was going on with coming back down saying, oh my me, that he had become God, but there was a little bit of ambiguity there. But I am glad that they acknowledged that they are going to kind of like address that a little bit for those of us who kind of like to know the extra nitty-gritty details. But overall, everyone, that is the gist of this little Lucifer update video. I just wanted to do another one, nerd out with you guys about some details that the showrunners have given us and teased us with. But I would love to know if you would like to see more Lucifer content, and if you do, name me some suggestions of what you would like to see, maybe like an outright pure season 6 predictions video or something like that. But if you want to stay up to date with Lucifer, and I mean up to date, I will be covering this show with anything of note that's worthy of covering, to do with brand new news updates, season 6 updates. Make sure you subscribe to this channel with the notification bell button on, so you never miss out on a future Lucifer video. And of course, if you want to stay up to date with me, you can do so by following me on Twitter and other places. All those links are in the top pinned comment, which is my comment in the comment section. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you Lucy fans in the next video. Goodbye.